right. So, welcome to the Lead Dems first Lunch and Learn, one of many, hopefully. And we're so honored to have the Manchester Mayor, Joyce Craig, join us, who is also, of course, running for governor. Mayor Craig, what I'm hoping, at least out of this, is that you tell us your experience, why you want to be governor, and how the Lead Dems can help you. And then, of course, for me, I'm curious to know, would you like to take questions during or just wait to the end?
Whatever works for all of you. I'm very flexible.
Excellent. All right. So with that, the platform is yours. Thank you.
Sure. So thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you. Lee holds a special place in my heart, coming from Manchester and having gone to college in Durham. I go through your town an awful lot. My daughter went there too, and it's just a beautiful area. So thank you so much. So I thought I would just go through my stump speech. Please, stop me if you have questions, or I can address questions after. But we were talking earlier when we first started about the beautiful day that we have today, and actually over the last couple of days. But from my perspective, this summer has really shown us how extreme climate change is. We have seen these once in a lifetime storms really coming within a matter of years now. And these downpouring rains have turned many of our roads into rivers, causing tremendous damage. And it's very clear to me that the statewide infrastructure hasn't been built to withstand these storms. And you're probably thinking, wow, she really is a mayor. The first thing she's talking about is infrastructure, but it's really something that we need to consider. But it does go beyond infrastructure. And I believe we need to be doing everything in our power to be addressing climate change. And for me, that means having an energy policy in place that promotes renewable energy and transitions us away from fossil fuel with clear-cut goals on how to do that. So I am tremendously grateful for the work that Democrats have done at the State House when it comes to net metering. Because of that work and the advancements there, Manchester was able to build the largest municipal solar array in the state. It generated great union jobs, and it's saving our residents money. And because of that solar array and other initiatives that we have in place, we've been able to cut carbon emissions in the city of Manchester by 60%. And so I believe with leadership who believes in climate change and understands what we need to do to address it, then we can be making these advancements in local communities throughout our state. So I'm running for governor in large part to build upon the progress that's happening at the local level and to support our local communities, because I believe that together we can ensure that we are providing opportunities for our families to succeed. So for the last 6 years, as you know, I've been mayor of Manchester. I've been the chief executive here in the city. I know local government is very different in our communities throughout the state. In Manchester, we don't have a city manager, so it's my job. So every year I develop the annual budget of just shy of $400 million. It sets the vision for the city while always keeping our taxes low. I manage every single department here in the city, and I nominate department heads and commissioners. I negotiate contracts, and I'm chairman of the Board of School Committee and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, or our city council. And every day I'm solving problems and moving our city forward. And for the last 6 years, I have been on the front lines dealing with statewide challenges, and I know we can be doing better. So I am fourth generation resident of Manchester. I grew up in a blue collar family. My dad is a retired IBEW electrician. And when I think about my childhood, I know I was fortunate to grow up in this beautiful state with two loving parents. But it wasn't always easy for us. There was a time when I was young when my dad actually had to move to Wisconsin for over a year because there were no local union jobs in the area for him. And that feeling of my father having to leave our family really stayed with me. And it's what's driven me to make sure that we have good quality jobs in our community. And I've delivered on that. So for the first time in over a decade, we have new airlines coming into Manchester. I've helped hundreds of small businesses open. I brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars in economic development. And Manchester now has one of the hottest job markets in the entire country. So we are providing opportunities for residents across the state. And I'm always looking for ways to move our city and our state forward. Manchester is home to an emerging biomanufacturing industry, and it will revolutionize healthcare as we know it. My office led an effort to apply for one of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge grants. It's a competitive federal economic development grant. And I'm really pleased to say that Manchester was the only municipality to win that grant. So we have $44 million coming into our city, to the Mill Yard, to build out lab space for workforce development. We'll be doing a transportation study, and it's creating 7,000 family sustaining jobs. So this is a game changer for the state. And in order to support this growth and encourage additional growth, we need to make sure that we have a prepared workforce. And that means that we have good quality public education throughout our state. So I first got involved in public service when I ran for school board many years ago. I wanted to change the direction of Manchester public schools, and it's still what drives me today. I believe that in order to have thriving, successful communities, we need to have thriving, successful public schools. And I'm happy to say that in Manchester, we're making progress, despite the fact that the state has been downshifting money, funds, that's burdening all of our local communities, and that we have an education commissioner who is doing everything in his power to destroy public schools. And I think that, there was a good example last week when the commission approved PragerU as an option for students in our state. That's just wrong. And it's why Manchester joined the Conval lawsuit, because I believe that any student, no matter where they live, should have access to good quality public education. So as governor, I would ensure that our public dollars go to public schools. And it's a shame that I even have to say this, but that we have an education commissioner who understands and appreciates public schools. My daughter, Sarah, is starting her second year teaching at Manchester Central High School. She's teaching English, and my husband and I are extremely proud to have a public educator in our family. We know how hard our educators work. And as governor, I will always support our teachers, their students, and their families. In a critical way that we need to support families throughout the state is to ensure that we have good housing that's affordable, available to individuals, again, throughout our state. The projections statewide are that we need about 60,000 housing units by 2030, which is really right around the corner. The good news, as I talked about earlier, is that we have growing industry, we have good paying jobs, people want to live in New Hampshire. But if they don't find housing that's affordable for them, we're not going to have the workforce that we need to support our industry and our families. And so we need to start building very quickly while balancing the needs of our local communities. So in Manchester, we have about just over 2,000 housing units in development. As mayor, I've been able to allocate over $11 million to our Affordable Housing Trust. And I've worked with and negotiated with developers to encourage them to build more housing that's affordable for our residents. But Manchester's needs are very different than your needs. And we need a governor who will recognize that and will work with our local communities so that we're building housing that meet your needs. And as a mayor, I understand that the funding that comes out of the state has to be flexible. So, right now, smaller communities if they want to build housing, sometimes they don't even have the infrastructure that exists. So the water and sewer. And we need to make sure that, again, our goal is to build housing throughout the state, that we're supporting our smaller communities to build that infrastructure so that they can build the housing that's needed. And again, when I say a governor who will support, it's a governor and an administration who will support this. It's a critical situation that I'm hearing loud and clear when I'm traveling across the state. And right now, when you think about it, there's not a person at the state level who is expert at housing. And I think it fits very well into the economic development portion of the state. And we really need someone who's going to lead this effort and work with our local communities to make sure we're doing everything we can, again, to support them so that we're building housing to meet the needs of our communities. And then, again, one of the things that I'm experiencing as mayor and all of the other mayors are experiencing is we have statewide challenges that the state isn't participating in to the level that they should be. Back in 2020, every single mayor got together, and we are Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. And we all agreed that the number one challenge that we were all facing is homelessness. And yet this past winter, every single statewide shelter was full. We're seeing an increase in opioid overdoses across the state, and it's especially hitting the North Country. Yet the state won't release outcome data on their state-funded Doorway program. And we still don't have enough psychiatric beds to meet the needs of individuals who need help. And so we need to recognize that many of these issues are co-occurring. And in my opinion, move forward with a housing first model so that we can put a roof over someone's head, which would enable them to be stabilized. And then we could address their underlying issues. And in Manchester, we are wrapping our arms around these challenges. I have the National Alliance to End Homelessness coming into Manchester. Their mission is to prevent and end homelessness across this entire country. And from my perspective, I feel strongly that this should be happening at the state level, not just in the city of Manchester. We're using some of our opioid abatement money to pay for detox for individuals who say they want help, but don't have insurance. So we're ensuring that they get the help that they need to, again, get on a path to recovery. And I've worked very closely with the Manchester Police Department. And as a result, we have decreased crime by 12% and violent crime by 38%. So we're making our city safer by implementing evidence-based programs and using data to drive our decisions. And this, again, is something that I'm hearing from residents across our state. They're worried about safety. They're worried about their kids going to school and being safe. And I just want to say, as governor, I will work closely with communities large and small, partnering with them to make sure they have the support and resources they need from a public safety perspective. So you're all on this Zoom, so you know there's a lot at stake this election. There are extreme threats on the LGBTQ community, on climate, on our democracy, and on access to abortion. And when I think about the Dobbs decision and the fact that New Hampshire is the only state that hasn't codified Roe versus Wade, I think about my two daughters and all of our daughters and granddaughters and the fact that they have less control over their bodies than we did at their age. And I think that is just so wrong. I will always support access to abortion. My opinion is that government plays no role in this decision that should be made between a woman and her doctor, and I will fight to ensure it stays that way. And we have to remember that it's on all of us every election to protect reproductive rights in New Hampshire. So in order to safeguard our future and, again, ensure opportunities for families throughout our state, we need to win back the governor's office and take back majorities at the State House. And this coming election presents our best opportunity to do that. But it's going to be tough. And I want you all to know that I understand what it takes to win tough elections. When I was elected mayor of Manchester back in 2017, I beat a popular 4-term incumbent Republican mayor. I was the first Democrat mayor elected in Manchester since 2005. Many people think about Manchester as being a blue community, but it's really purple. And so, you know, and with an important point to note too is that there hasn't been a Democrat running for governor that's won Manchester in almost a decade. And I want you to know that with every election that I've won in this purple community, I've been able to bring more Democrats along with me to the Board of School Committee and to the Board of Aldermen. And that's exactly what I intend to do this election. We need to win in purple communities if we're going to win the governor's office. And again, this isn't just about me from my perspective. I want to be supporting others so that we can have the majorities in Concord that we need. So I want to thank you for your time. You know, my campaign is about what we can achieve for families throughout our state in communities large and small. We are really focusing on what matters most and making sure that we can provide opportunities to our residents. And thank you. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Oh, unless Amanda wants to pick somebody to go first, I've got a question. Actually, I have a number of questions. So,
No, go ahead, Eric. You were very studious and taking a lot of notes. Go for it.
okay, thank you. I appreciate that because I'm normally a bad note taker. Hi, I'm Eric Johnson, live in Lee. I'm a CPA during the day. The whole tax question always comes up every cycle. As I understand it, the last 3 successful Democrats to run for governor or be elected governor ended up taking the pledge in one form or another about not having a broad-based income tax, that sort of thing. You must have thought about this already, so this can't be a surprise question. So please tell us your thoughts and feelings on taxes in New Hampshire.
Yeah, I've already taken the pledge as well. I don't support an income or a sales tax.
Okay. I have other questions, but I'll let other people go first.
Mary, you took yourself on mute, off of mute. Would you like to ask a question?
Sure. I want to thank you for your work on cutting carbon emissions in Manchester. To us in this area, that's a very important topic. I have kind of an A and a B question. I understand that the implementation plan for the New Hampshire climate plan is supposed to be finished by March of next year, which is very aggressive. So I'm wondering what you think about the possibility that implementation can be quick, or will there need to be a lot of budgeting to be done to get this going? And my second question is, it is important to us here. I understand, especially in other parts of New Hampshire, northern, basic making a living is difficult. What do you perceive at this stage about the receptivity, broad-based, in New Hampshire is to this issue? Do you think it's high on the concern list, or?
Energy and renewable energy?
And yes, climate change.
It is. So I am shocked at how important it is to people throughout our state. It is something that has been resonating with people. And I think that part of it is that states around us have all made progress when it comes to solar and offshore wind and other options. And again, New Hampshire is just falling behind. And the facts are that it creates good paying jobs and it saves our residents money. And so, and preserves our beautiful environment. And so why are we not moving forward with this is my question. To your first question, I'm not sure. I would have to look into it. My hope is that we can implement we can have a plan and we can start implementing, right away. I know that there are a lot of federal funds that are available for renewable energy, and I would hope that, you know, communities, if need be, could tap into those. And that's something that I'm also hearing from smaller communities. So in Manchester, we have the resources to be able to apply for some of these complex grant opportunities, but a lot of smaller communities don't. And there's money available. And I think that if we could, from a statewide perspective, help our smaller communities do this, it would be very beneficial.
And just one quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Because I've heard from quite a few people that the current governor has left a lot of federal money on the table.
Yes.
That New Hampshire has not taken advantage of. Is part of that because there is no one at the state level to accelerate that, or is it just an attitude?
Yeah. I can't speak for him, so let's talk about free lunch for students. That money was returned because he said that he didn't think we needed it. I can tell you we desperately need it. Senator Shaheen got significant funds in for childcare, which is a serious issue in our state. This state had it for about a year. It's now getting out into our communities. And I know that he turned back other funds that weren't utilized too. So I don't believe it's because there's not someone there. I think I couldn't say why, but you're right. And it's unfortunate because that could be helping our communities.
Thank you.
Eric, would you like to go again?
Sure. Well, I'll go to my next one. So the charter school system has expanded under the current governor. Some ways that maybe we don't. Some ways maybe we don't like. Some ways maybe we don't really. Doesn't affect us on a daily basis. But what sort of changes would you make to the charter school system, if any?
Yeah, that's something that we'd have to work with the legislature on. I've been focused mostly on the private and religious schools and funds going out to those schools. I think that is that's wrong. Our public dollars need to be going toward our public schools. And for somehow they're finding unlimited resources to go to private and religious schools. So from a priority perspective, I think I would focus on that first, and then look at charter schools and how that's working. I can tell you we have a number of them in Manchester, and to your point, Eric, some are doing well and some are not. And I think that, you know, the State Department of Education needs to hold our charter schools, if they're public schools, public charter schools, to the same requirements as our traditional public schools. And I don't see that happening. And I think that's something that we need to be doing as well, because we have some that are very strong and the students are doing well, but then there are others that are not providing an adequate education to students.
Hi, I'm Katrina Casper, and I'm the chair of the select board in Lee. And I want to tell you, you're with a great group because they have changed a 3 Republican select board into 2 women, which is very rare on the select board. So this is a team, and they're really supportive. One thing that I'm very painfully aware of is how little support there is for women in politics, and understanding of the differences in the challenges that we face. Do you have any idea of ways you could be supportive or helpful, or things that we could do to make sure women's voices are being heard in our state?
Yeah, I do think from a statewide perspective, we're fortunate that we have had women like Maggie Hassan and Senator Shaheen and Annie Custer, and places where so we can see, you know, ourselves there. But I think it's important to have leadership that's in the local community too. So one of the things that I've done as mayor is before every school board meeting, I have students come into my office and, you know, we talk about their day and we talk about what they want to see in the city. And I let the girls sit in my chair in back of me at my desk, so they can feel what it feels like to be mayor. Because I was the first woman mayor of Manchester, and I tell them I don't want to be the last. So I want you to have your eye on that. And I think sending messages like that is really important to young girls, but also to be supportive of women who are considering. I didn't grow up in a political family. I ran for school board because I had 3 young children, and the schools were not doing well. And I wanted to participate in helping them get better. And I think I just think there are a lot of passionate, both men and women out there who care. And I think that's the most important thing. And having conversations, meeting with people, being available to talk through concerns is what we all have to do. Maggie Hassan was a great role model for me. When I was thinking about running for mayor, she came over to my house and sat down in my living room and talked to my husband and I about what she's gone through, and especially to my husband about what her husband Tom went through and what he could expect. And I think having those honest conversations is really important.
So true. Thank you.
So to pick up on the notion of the environment in the terms of a good economic growth, as you know, you probably know, some of the economic models are moving to the notion that not all growth is good because of effects on the environment and what it can sustain. Do you have any plan or notion, or have you had anything implemented in Manchester that balances assessment of business growth potential with environmental concerns?
We have not done that locally. We have not. Have you done that in Lee?
Not well. We have Katrin can answer that. My impression is we have a fairly protective planning board that, together with the conservation group, keeps an eye on what's planned.
Yeah.
And whether it's going to be compatible with environmental concerns. Katrin, would you agree?
Yes, and we're also, I don't know if you know, Mary, but we are doing a natural resource inventory right now, so we have better data to make sure that we can move forward in a better path. We just got a grant this year.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
We do that at the planning board level. In Manchester, they're a quasi judicial. They're not affiliated with the city, but we don't have a plan that is showing impact to businesses. The other thing is that what we've done in Manchester is we have, thankfully, very good drinking water, and we've preserved thousands of acres around our source of water as conservation. Conversations that I'm having with folks up north, there's in Berlin, there's a biomass plant right now that the governor vetoed. So there's a potential that would be closing. So that's of concern to them. And then there's also a situation with stopping logging on land that's been conserved. So it's a tax credit company saying that they bought it and they're going to sell tax credits. And but if the land's already preserved, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. So those are a couple issues that in another area of the state have come up from an environmental and a business perspective.
David, you keep trying to jump in. Do you want to ask?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I have a couple of questions. I mean, I can ask lots of questions, but just a couple of things. So I know in your stump speech at the beginning, you mentioned the mental health crisis. I'm an ER doctor, so mental health beds and that kind of availability is near and dear to my heart. It's something I deal with every time I go to work. Can you give us some more details about how you would propose to work on that?
Yeah. So in Manchester, as I mentioned, I put forward the budget that sets the vision for the state. And I think it's really important, like the governor does that throughout the state. And I don't think it's right that the state had to be sued in order for the state to act to add beds for mental illness. I think it's something that we need to recognize is a desperate need, and we need to fund it. So we're not going to be able to do everything at once, but we've got to allocate some serious funds toward more beds and encouraging more professionals, because we know that we don't have enough medical professionals right now to help all of those individuals in need. My office is on Elm Street in Manchester, and I see people in crisis every single day, and I know a lot of them by name, but they're not getting the help that they need, and we've got to be doing more, in my opinion, to help people, and as well as doing outreach. Manchester Mental Health here in the city has been doing a fantastic job doing outreach to individuals, but their funding just stopped. And again, we need to measure the impact that that's going to have before we say we're not going to fund it, in my opinion. We use data a lot in the city of Manchester to drive our decisions, and I think we can be doing a better job of that at the state level. And you as an ER doctor, I've worked with Alex over at CMC and Dr. Baxter at the Elliott, and I know there's a serious concern for safety of medical professionals in the hospitals, with whether it's someone coming in on their own, or with the police department bringing someone in and leaving them. And we've got to address that. In order for you to do your job, you've got to know that you are in a safe environment, just like you would be if you were downtown or in your front yard. It's a situation to me that has been ignored and can't be ignored any longer.
Great. And then my other question is kind of a little more general. So, in today's sort of political climate, when you're dealing with sort of the tribalism, potentially red-leaning legislature, personalities like the education commissioner who's pushing Prague review, how do you plan on working with those people?
Yeah. So my elections here in the city have always been nonpartisan. And so I have had Republicans endorse me, many, when I ran for mayor, independents as well, and Democrats, obviously. So I have a track record of working across the aisle, and we need that when it comes to Concord. And what I've done is tried to always find common ground. And while we may not always agree on everything, there tends to be something that people are passionate about. And if you can make some progress on that, then typically sometimes you can make some progress on something else. It's just about treating people with respect. When I'm in the grocery store here, and someone stops me and says, I have a pothole or my trash wasn't picked up, I'm not asking them what party they're in. I'm asking them for their address, and I take care of the issue. And that's exactly the approach that I would take in Concord. We've got to try to make progress on these important issues. We can't just say, I'm not going to work with you because you're a party that I'm not.
Right, but then how do you, I agree completely, but how do you get, like, if the other side, if, you can be willing to meet somebody in the middle, but if they're not willing to meet you,
Yeah,
how do you?
So like I said, there are Republicans that believe we should be doing more with renewable energy, right? But the governor does not. And so it's finding those things that people are interested in and working with them to get it done. And the hope is that during those times, you can build a relationship and hopefully move forward on other issues that are important to you. I wish I could change the behavior of others, but I can't, but I can certainly try. I think listening is a big part too. It is understanding what's important to someone, knowing we're not going to agree on everything, but if there's a little something that we can move on, maybe we can, make movement on both sides.
So now that you said that, my question is there any Republican legislation that became law in the last year or in the prior session that you feel is so bad it needs to be reversed immediately?
I don't have it in front of me, but I don't agree with the abortion ban. I would not support that. I don't agree with the Burgess biomass veto that the governor did. I'm sure there's more. I'm sorry, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I'm sure there's a lot regarding education. They increased the amount going to private and religious schools. I'm totally against that. I wouldn't getting rid of the tax on the wealthy. I wouldn't have supported that.
You mean the interest and dividends tax?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay. I've got one more question unless somebody else wants to go.
Go for it.
Okay. Moving away from Republicans. So obviously you're running for governor, but you're currently in a primary. Cindy Warmington is the other person I'm aware of. Are there any major distinctions between you and her that we ought to be aware of? Or are we all just friends?
I mean, excuse me, the two things that I focused on, and I talked about them in my speech. One is that I actually have the executive experience. So what I've been doing in Manchester, developing the budget, managing departments, nominating department heads, being the leader of the largest city north of Boston, addressing challenges, implementing programs. It's very similar to what the governor is doing. So I am doing the work already of what, having the executive experience that the governor would need to do. And I have also won in very, very difficult elections. And I think that's really important. My eye is actually on how do we beat Kelly Ayotte? I think she's going to be the nominee, and we need to make sure that we beat her at the end of the day. And that's the campaign that I'm building right now. I'm building a campaign for the general election that is focused on beating Kelly Ayotte.
Okay. Any policy differences that you're aware of? Maybe we'll find out later.
Probably. I don't know. I doubt it.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. I was actually going to ask that last one, so thank you for doing that. And then my last question to you, Mayor Craig, is how can the Lee Dems help you?
So, any opportunity to meet folks is really important right now. As I mentioned, I'm going all over the state. So I would love the opportunity to meet residents, answer their questions, listen to them about what's most important to them. So that would be the key thing.
Can I just remind everyone that you're coming to the Freedom Cafe with me? I'm hosting October 22nd, and we will need lots of people to fill that room. So please invite friends. October 22nd at 3. I signed up. I've been following your career for a while and signed up on the first day when you announced you were running, and desperately tried to get in touch with your staff. So thank you.
Well, it's so fun. That's my daughter's favorite place.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Well, we're looking forward to seeing you then. But please bring friends.
I'll do a couple more shout outs for that later in the next month. No worries.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, comments, thoughts? If not, we'll wrap it up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And if you have any other questions that you think about later, please reach out. I'm happy to connect. And this is a critical election, and we have to win. And I just want you to know that we are working really hard, and we'll continue to work hard to make sure that we do. And I hope that I can earn your support.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Mayor, for joining us. Y'all have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye.